Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston with defeatyourcravings.com, and I am here with
the very good Howie Jacobson of AskHowie.com.
Hey, buddy, how are you?
I'm great. I almost said equally good, and then it started feeling pretentious. So I'm just glad we're both good.
We're both good. I got a quick one for you today, and it's a little quote that I heard from Doug Graham. Doug Graham is the author of the 80-10-10 diet. I don't know if he wrote it down anywhere or if it's just something that he said to me in a workshop one time, but he said, Glenn, bears eat fish and bears eat blueberries, but bears never make blueberry fish sandwiches. It's a cute little thing to say. What he was getting at was that the combination meal, sandwiches, pasta and sauce, peanut butter and jelly, all of that kind of thing, it's an artifact of society, and it's an effort to make food more interesting and flavorful. And he's actually arguing for consuming mono meals. He really believes that we're meant to eat one food at a time until we're full. I think it might be true, but I also think it's really hard to comply with. I do think, however, that the principle could be used beneficially in two ways. If there's something that you're feeling addicted to, like for me, spaghetti with marinara sauce and mozzarella cheese, a long time ago, I couldn't get enough of it. I asked myself, well, what would happen if I just had a big plate of pasta with no tomato sauce or cheese on it? Would I really want the pasta? Not more than a couple of bites, you know? What I was really looking for is the combination. The pasta is really a carrier for the sauce and the cheese. One thing you can do is make food a little less palatable to you by thinking, well, would I just eat this plain, or am I really addicted to the sauce or the combination? And I found that that's helpful with clients. Sometimes people can work their way away from something addictive if they eat it in unison as opposed to in combination. But the other thing is that what's really wrong with making things more flavorful and enjoyable if it's something that's healthy for you? So, if you're going to have brown rice with sodium-free tomato sauce and nutritional yeast or some type of interesting flavor, what's wrong with making something really flavorful and delicious using the combination principle in your benefit if it's something that you want to have more of? Doug, by the way, would not think that brown rice was healthy, but a lot of people do. So I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about that, or if it's of interest to you in any way.
Yeah. One of the thoughts that just came up is, you told me to read this book by Alan Fay, How to Make Things Better by Making Them Worse. And I'm just getting to the part in that book where he's describing the rationale behind this paradoxical approach. And it's basically, we have innate resistance mechanisms. What I hear you saying is there's ways to use Doug Graham's insight to help us eat less, and there's ways to use it to help us eat more.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of being dogmatic or bearmatic, we get to say that's really interesting. We know what helps us eat more of something. And so if I want to eat spaghetti squash instead of white pasta, then I load up on the marinara and I can have a full plate. I've done this. I've had, a little nutritional yeast, marinara sauce, and a spaghetti squash. I had as much as if I'd had a whole pound of cooked pasta, but it was a fifth of the calories and it tasted almost as good.
Exactly, yes. And we don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. And if the goal was to find the ideal human nutrition, I actually think that he's right, but I just don't think most people can eat like that.
I think it's also dismissing tens of thousands of years of human culture. We're not just the biological machines. We're still the same machinery as we were 10,000 years ago. We haven't developed new organs. You could argue that Northern Europeans adapted to be able to consume dairy from other animals and past weaning. But basically, we're the same equipment, but culture is kind of its own organ. Just look at us biologically and don't take into account who we are. We've developed language. We've developed understandings. I was talking to someone yesterday, an old friend of mine who's really brilliant, and he was saying, like, he's been going through the theories throughout history of what separates humans from animals, and their speech and planning and bipedalism and hands and all that. And he said the one that fascinates him the most is that we are the only species, as far as we know, that recognizes our grandparents. And I'm just beginning to unpack that. And I don't know if it's true, but it's damn interesting. And
that is interesting. Go on.
So the idea that we've created cultural ways of eating, and there's a lot of foods that have nutrients that go down better with fat. So the traditional cultures, if you had tomatoes and basil and garlic, you'd have a little olive oil. A little bit would enhance the flavor, which is why people did it. But it also, one of the things we know about flavor is that for most creatures throughout history, flavor is an indication of good nutrition, not bad nutrition. So I think it's very useful to listen to these insights. I know a woman who's just eating raw mono meals, and she was very happy. And I think she viewed it as a huge respite from the struggles she had over food previously, kind of the way Doug Graham would describe it. I think there's an insight there that each one of us can figure out how we could benefit from it.
I totally agree.
Yeah. Also, blueberries are delicious.
Blueberries are amazing, aren't they?
They are.
I can eat blueberries on anything. I put them on my salads, my favorite thing. And in Florida, you can get them frozen, and they're really not that expensive. I can get a 3-pound bag, I think, for $9. It's not bad at all.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.